So here we are, we're talking wrestling, we're talking shit, we're just chilling back and kicking back, and we're hoping you're along for the ride as well. I'm Christian, this is Kevin, Wrestling Fans for Life. So we hope that you're here for the ride as well. And tonight we're going to be talking about women's wrestling and whatever else comes to mind. So, hell, dude, women's wrestling. Do you like women's wrestling, Kevin?
Of course I do. And with the announcement, breaking ground announcement on Monday Night Raw this past week, with the announcement of Evolution in October 28th.
Okay.
The all women's pay-per-view.
I don't know whether I like it or not. I actually think, for the worst possible reason and for the best possible reason, it's almost a little too late. Because WWE had the opportunity to do this a long time ago and didn't bother. But the women's revolution in wrestling, I guess, it has been the big forefront of what they've been up to the last couple of years. It feels disappointing that this didn't happen like even 10 years ago. When I look at TNA, who've also hosted all women's pay-per-views, they did like 3. One of them is like 2007. Well, I think one was like 2011. I think there's been a couple more since then. So it feels like WWE's women's division has been on a bit of the back foot, really. And when I think about what the women's division is in WWE now, it kind of reminds me of 2 points in history. Kind of the TNA's women's knockouts division, but also there was that point in like 2003, 2000 to 2005 where you had girls in WWE who were putting on the most amazing matches. Girls like Victoria, Trish, and Lita, and Jazz, Molly Holly, and so many more talents who they were putting on matches that were as good as anything on the main card. I mean, there's this. In fact, on your hard drive, what you lent me a few weeks ago, right? There was a match I had to download. It was the 4-way women's hardcore match. It was on SmackDown, and it was like Victoria, Jazz, Molly, and Trish. My God, this match was great.
And that's the thing. I feel that the women's division through WWE's history has been like the hardcore division back in between 97 and 02. Flashes of importance, and then it's either a joke or a segment filler.
Yeah, I mean there was the long run joke that you'd watch your pay-per-view, then you'd go for a beer or a tea or go for a piss when the women's match is on. Disappointingly, because they often put on a good match as well. And I feel that W has always done women a bit of a disservice, really. When you look back at the early 2000s, when they kind of considered the side sex show of the show, disappointed really. But now, has WWE turned a leaf, or is it just kind of rolling with the positive feminist movement? Do you think? And women empowerment.
I think it's a little bit of that, but I do believe that right now, I don't think there's a better place in the world to wrestle than as a woman than the WWE. New Japan's definitely not it, and that's amazing considering today's standard of wrestling there. But the fact that they haven't got one female wrestler on their card, that blows my mind with the talent that is in the world right now. Asuka, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, just amazing talent. Sasha Banks, Bayley, and there's still some female talent coming up with Shia Baszler and Kairi Sane. They're coming up.
You know what I
Cross.
really admire actually, who are so completely out there. I really like Rosemary from TNA. I think her character is really good.
Yes.
I really like Sexy Star.
It's very different.
From Lucha Underground.
Doesn't go off on one and just try to kill people because
just break the fucking off for my own reason. Jokes aside,
it's just a bad day.
Yeah. What was her name? ODB. Just completely out of. Was not a pretty sexy Playboy-looking model, but was a hell of a wrestler. And just she looked like ODB. Kind of reminded me, if Stone Cold was a woman, that would be him.
Yeah.
And if you want to take inspiration from someone, why not Stone Cold?
Exactly, and a time as well where you could pull off that kind of gimmick and be a female. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. I mean, if the female wrestlers can pull off some of the males' counterparts' gimmicks, Charlotte.
Yeah.
A carbon copy of the father, but she's everything that she should be. She is an athletic freak.
Yeah, she is. That's amazing. she's actually beautiful, and she's just utterly athletic. You know, when I watch her do that moonsault, and it's the arc of the body is just like the way that her long body is when she does the backflip of it, and her legs come over together. It looks like watching Stink in slow motion. It's beautiful.
It reminds me of Kurt Angle's.
It does. That is a good way to put it. Yeah, it is.
It reminds me of Kurt Angle's. The way that the arc of the back and then the body comes over and they land flat. Even if they do come off the top of a cage and bounce off the mat, like he's confused look on his face in that Stone Cold match.
Yeah. I can when he did that to Ken Anderson in at TNA Lockdown a few years ago. He did that, and he's supposed to be retired. His neck's fucked, and he climbs this fucking cage and does the moonsault off the top, and it's like, you fucking crazy bastard! What are you doing? And even I was just like, what are you doing, Kurt? Why? But then you realize that he does it because he's purely out of passion. But sometimes that passion overrides your own mental facility. Going, how bad will this damage my body?
Oh god, there are so many guys like that. Terry Funk, Sabu.
Dude, Terry Funk, man. Terry Funk. I see
that guy was north of 50 before he did his first moonsault. What? That is an actual fact.
Yeah. I'll give these guys are fucking balls, man. All them hardcore death matches, man. That's an interesting point. You remember that video that you and I lent to each other, like 1995 of that IWA King of the Deathmatch tournament video?
It scarred me for life.
That was fucking. I think that's when wrestling became real, because that event was brutal, and there's like Terry Gordy on there got put through a fucking table covered in thumbtacks, and someone got thrown in a fire pit, and I'm going, what the fuck is this? This is amazing.
Trays of glass and thumbtacks,
and they didn't even get paid. And they didn't get paid.
They could have at least bought them a burger. I mean, that is some promoting genius. That you get a group of wrestlers prepared to wrestle in front of people and about to set yourself on fire, and you don't get paid. There's got to be a good markup there.
Yeah, you know, as the company going, well, everyone's paying. You know, we don't have to pay these guys. They just want to get exposure, so they're going to do the most craziest shit possible.
Yeah, I think I'll tip the valet with the wages that we should have paid Mick Foley.
Dude, what was that? Is that a ticking time bomb match was in that as well?
Oh, ticking time bomb, landmine, barbed wire rope, ladder match.
Oh,
which I'm not quite sure why there was a ladder match. Why the ladder match stipulation came in, because I don't remember there being anything above the ring.
Dude, and that was just, and that bumper, he actually took a suplex off the top of that into the corner. Just
Yeah.
So
it's not right.
It's not. So, I mean, you see. I mean, I guess at that time they were trying to mirror what was happening with the FWA and Frontier Martial Arts, and no, it was FMW, wasn't it? Which ECW, yes. I guess, will also kind of hit that same kind of hardcore thing. But I think in ECW, the difference was although every match had the ability to go on the outside and there wasn't always a count out, and you could use weapons, it didn't become the only thing in the match. It wasn't just about going to get a table for the sake of it. It was a case of it would cause a spot or it would tell a story, as opposed to it being, we can just use a weapon for the sake of it. As where in FMW, it was just what we can fucking use anything, and they did. And every match just appeared to be just a mess.
Brawl.
Yeah.
And violent brawl with stuff. And it was all the most extreme stuff. Let's have some landmines and a giant tank filled with piranhas. And...
Dude, they had a fucking crocodile match. Do you remember that shit?
Yeah. Do you know, I was horrified to find out the other week.
What's that?
There was a... Oh, God. I can't remember what the thing was, but you had stuff something in the opponent's bum. right in his rectum.
Dude, that's
how you lost the match. The other guy rammed something in your ass.
There's a gerbil on a pole match.
That actually happened. That's...
You know what?
Actually, forget all this. Just turn it all off. I don't like wrestling anymore.
Okay. So, you know what? It's an interesting point. So, I can remember watching a documentary, and I don't remember who it was by, and it must have been about 10 years ago I watched it. And I think it was... I'd gone through this whole time of watching wrestling documentaries. I think Wrestling with Shadows hadn't long come out with Bret Hart. And I think actually it was called The Dark Side of Wrestling. And I think Channel 4 might have showed it, because I'm sure I saw it on terrestrial TV as a kind of shock value documentary. And one of the segments in it was, um, obviously TV, the internet was kind of in its early infancy, really, in terms of streaming content. And it was talking about how two wrestlers, and the particular focus was on a guy and a girl, and then basically they went into a room that had a sort of ring in this room, and then weapons and all of that, and they basically beat the fuck out of each other with like drawing pins on the floor. And he was talking about how people would pay to watch that match be filmed, and then they would buy the DVD of it. And I was just like, who the fuck would do that? Who would pay to see an intergender match of like hardcore extreme violence, and would then actually, that would be their distribution model, when they would then create these DVDs and they would sell them on. And at the time, I guess I hadn't considered that intergender matches existed, and I hadn't considered the fact that hardcore matches were like that. And I think I must have seen, I say 10 years ago, it must have been much longer. And what are your thoughts about that? The dark side.
Do you know what? I've never really been a big fan of the whole intergender thing. I know that they keep toying with it. Old James Ellsworth on SmackDown, they put him against Asuka, and you'd never actually get a hit in, and yet the girls would just kick the crap out of it. But I mean, back in the Attitude Era, it happened more often. I mean, Lita went against Spike, which actually wasn't a terrible match, but it was a match. It was a worked match, and they wrestled each other, irrelevant as the sex of the other one. Lita got the win in a fairly convincing match, but probably the most prevalent one that I can remember was actually on a pay-per-view, and it was Chris Jericho and Christian against Trish Stratus and Lita in a Battle of the Sexes tag team match.
How did that play out? Because I don't remember that.
You know what? I don't remember, because all I remember is I hated it. I hated the idea. I hated that it was men against women. I hated the fact that I didn't feel it was ever going to be a competitive match. And I really didn't think that it was a fantastic use of Christian or Chris Jericho. It didn't do anything for the women's division. I just thought that it was a waste of time for everyone involved.
Because I see like Lucha Underground uses men and women against each other, but I think in Lucha Underground it works a little better, because I guess the consumer side of it, as a watcher, you know that it's a television show that has wrestling as opposed to being a live wrestling show. So I think that plays into it a little bit better. And the women are actually put forward as being it's an underground fight club, where everyone's competing for, they're willing to fight for what they can get hold of. And it's conceivable that men fight women in underground fight clubs in Mexico, and especially women who are ready to kick ass and chew bubblegum. So I think it kind of lends itself to it quite well. I think you saw Sexy Star, she fought like Pentagon, and that match was brutal. And especially when she John Morrison, Johnny Mundo's partner, she fought Nick Cage. No, not Nick Cage. Was it Nick Cage? Brian Cage. When he did a spot where he did a top rope superplex to the outside through a table to her, and I'm going, fuck, is that too much? But I could believe it because it was a television show, not a wrestling show. But actually, it was really stylishly done. But I'm thinking that was a real match that was recorded at the time. Did I appreciate it? Well, yeah, I did. The whole spectacle, like, my God, he did that. But then I listened to Jim Cornette talk about it on his show, and he's like, we're trying to sell the idea of this is a competitive match. This person has an equal chance against this person, or this guy versus this guy. But if it's a guy versus girl, he's going to kick fuck out of her. Doesn't matter. He's much stronger. He's bigger. He's faster. He's much more athletic, gifted, regardless of how good she is as a talent. But if you're selling it on the idea that they're performing with each other, you're not telling the story that it's a competitive match. You're telling the story that they're putting on theatre, or they're putting on a performance rather than an actual match. It's not competitive, not real. Rather than wrestling should be about telling a real. They're putting over to the consumer, the audience, that it's real. So if it's man versus woman, it's not real, and you can see it as just a performance. So he said it tarnishes the product when it's a man versus woman. Now, what's your thoughts?
But then you say this China, and she's the intangible in this, or Asia back over in WCW.
Yeah.
they were so big. I'm not convinced I could beat China in a fight.
No.
I'm fairly sure that she could hurt me. I reckon she could hurt me pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But still, but then you put China against Chris Jericho, who was still bigger.
Yeah.
And Jericho was more athletic.
So how many matches did China have against me? Because I guess there wasn't that many women in WWF at the time at all, was there?
Not really, no. Not towards... I mean, there was the occasional woman, but China was still kept separate from all of that.
She was kept wasn't she? Yeah.
Separate from Sable and Miss Jackie and who else was about there?
No.
No.
Was Medusa floating between them?
No, not for a while. Medusa was still over in WCW wrestling, man. And this is what I mean. I mean, WWE's history with female wrestlers hasn't always been fantastic, but it's still been better than just about everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to think who was around that time. I think Trish came in at what, 2000, 2001?
2000, and she was green as grass.
Yeah. But you know what, the one match I really at that time, her versus Stephanie McMahon. That match was fucking quality.
Yeah.
That was
but then again, I've always said it when it comes down to the McMahons, if they're going to have a match, they will kill themselves to make sure it's the best match they can have.
Yeah, and you believe it, utterly. Shane, yeah. I don't believe Shane is a wrestler, but I think he's a hell of an entertainer. And I believe it. When he's in that ring, I believe what he's doing.
That's the thing with Shane. You can believe what Shane would do, because I think that even if you was 3 times his size, if you annoyed him enough, he would fight you. You may kill him, but he'd kill himself to get you.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that that would be the case.
I mean, I think, do you remember when, like, Shane did the Van Terminator?
What, the very first time? I think the very first time he did it to Vince McMahon. Yep, WrestleMania 17. And that ridiculous son versus father match.
You know what? Yeah, you're
the
probably
street
right.
fight.
Yeah.
That was the very first time. I think the last time he did it was Survivor Series. Not last year, the year before. And he went to do it on Roman Reigns, and Reigns speared him out of midair and the back killed him. If you haven't seen that match, you should. It was a marathon of a match, but it was action from bell to bell.
Yeah, I did.
Absolutely fantastic.
I did see that. That was good.
That was the last time I remember Shane trying the coast to coast Van Terminator thing.
Wow.
And it did not end well.
Good. Yeah, it deserves to be speared out the sky, and I think Roman deserves actually his good pop when he gets one. But he does. I actually, it's weird. I kind of like Roman Reigns because he looks like a guy who can legitimately kick someone's ass, but nobody believes it. But he wears his flak jacket armor and he's in the Shield. Everyone loves him. He comes out of himself going, "Oh, I'm the big dog," and everyone's like, "Fuck off! I don't believe you."
It's because everyone knows he's the hand-picked guy from the WWE office, and the thing is, he's the guy that everybody wanted to see, as opposed to, if John Cena had come dressed out like that and started just doing what he does, everyone would have lost their fucking minds. But because he's a different guy, because they know that Vince McMahon says, this is the guy that I want to be the face of pretty much until like I hand the keys over to, you know, someone else. If he ever would.
You know, I think Vince would still book until literally his last day. Or even he's... I thought, actually, do you think he's going to step away now the XFL is taken off? Which I guess has always been his baby, really. Waiting.
Do you know what? I think the XFL is that one... well, he's tried other ventures outside the WWE for a long time. The bodybuilding thing, the Ica Pro thing, all of it failed. And I think that he felt that if it had been longer with the XFL, it could have took off. And I think that's why he wants to pump more money into that. And he's got it now. He has that cash.
You have, you either have the NFL or you have the college football. The college football is where if you're an NFL fan, I suppose many of you are, that's where your really, really good matches are. And I think it's kind of like NXT in the main roster. You know, you have the thing is that all these universities make their talent play football for free because they're representing the university. As were the NFL guys, you know, are on multi-million dollar contracts, really. So I think there's definitely room for an actual alternative league to the NFL. You know, you've got enough talent to pull from who want to get paid. And if you present it like how WWE presents a show, you know, where it's a big ass Titan screen, which is what they had at the time. That was the one big difference between the NFL and the X There's massive, the Titantron effectively at each end of the arena, and you had they didn't have their names on the back. They had like their kind of their character names, and I do think having Jim Ross back in the day was perhaps not the best call to have. But if you could play the NFL with looser rules, it's a bit like what happened with the revolution of cricket. Not that I really care too much for cricket, but they created, instead of being a 5-day test match, you could play it in 2 hours and have the 20-20 rule. You know, you're playing for 20 wickets each, and the idea is you could go in an afternoon and watch an event and go home and enjoy it. And I think the American football needs that, because heck, it's on 1 hour on the clock, but you're there for 4 or 5 hours because they keep stopping everything. If you can do that and have it in 2 hours, you know, you've instantly got a brand new spectator sport that is a lot more tasteful and fast and friendly to do. I mean, I think America needs that an alternative football league.
And I think Vince could pull it off. I really do. He knows what he's doing. He's not, you know, he's not new to promotion. He's far from. He's not new to giving names and promoting the crap out of each one of those names, creating t-shirts, merchandise. And I think that's what he was always aiming for. It's just that I don't think he had the money back then. And I think at that time it was just a case of poor timing. Yes, heard of it.
Fucking hate it. They don't want politics in their sport. They want to watch a game that isn't, because in America, I guess you're absolutely just, it's thrown at you 24 hours a day about politics, and I think people are sick to death of it right now. They want sports to be separate, and I think if XFL does that, they've got a guaranteed audience where it's no politics. Everyone's out there to have a good game. It's not competitive in the same way that, say, the NFL is. I don't know if are they going to play. Are they going to be an actual competitive league, or is it going to be sports entertainment but American football?
I think that it has to be competitive. I don't think they can sports entertainment it. Not their American football. No way. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think speeding it up. I think giving them the character names will also help with merchandise. I just don't think that it's a very good idea to make it sports entertainment, or everybody chasing it around with plaques going, "It's not real, you know."
So on that note, then, what other sports have the potential to be sports entertainment? Do you think like football could be sports entertainment?
I think anything could be. I mean, all you got to do, if you want proof of that, watch a sports film.
Yeah.
Watch Mean Machine. That's a worked match.
Yeah.
You watch any connotation version of it. It's all a work. But yet you still go to the cinema. You still pay your money. You still watch it.
So yeah, let's expand on that a little bit. On that a little bit. So, if you had a sport that, say, five-a-side football. Now I don't care too much about football at all, really. But if you had 5-on-5 in a smaller arena with fancy lights and graphics going on, and you had kind of the smack talk where guys bitching at each other a bit more, rather than going, "Oh well, we had a good match today. This guy was really nice." If it was a bit more like, "That fucking guy is an asshole over there. I'm gonna make sure in the next game we beat him," would you be compelled to watch it?
I don't know. I mean, if you've got, I've not been a fan of sport much at all. I never really have. But if you've got a panel of people that know what they're talking about, you can talk me into being more interested. Now, I won't watch a full football match, but I will take more of an interest in the results.
Yeah. So, what about? Do you think you could have sports entertainment and boxing?
Again, you could, but it will take away from it. I mean, people want to see a competitive match. It's difficult to pull off, but I think as soon as you start doing that with boxing, then it brings the legitimacy of the entire sport down. And believe me, the people that have always wanted to keep boxing as legitimate as possible, all the people that have had troubles outside of boxing have cleaned up their act to keep the sport as clean as possible. I really think they would just reject it straight away.
I'm trying to think what other sports actually would perhaps lend itself to it quite well. I think anything where you've got maybe only one or two guys maybe in the sport. I don't know why it just came to my head with lacrosse, but I don't know why that came into my head. I just like you've got a stick. You got something you can actually beat the guy with, like a hockey stick or something. Maybe that. I tell you, there was another sports entertainment show actually, and I don't know if you ever saw it. Actually, it was on I don't know if it was on Challenge or if it was on like MTV or like Eurosport. I can remember catching it, and then every Saturday I intentionally stayed in to watch it, and it was called Roller Jam or something, and it was on it was like roller skates, but it was like a figure eight arena, and they literally so they had like a high bank one side, had a figure eight, and then the other side was kind of flat area. And the idea was one team was like the aggressor. They had a ball, and they had to either lap the other team, or they have to go around like 3 or 4 times and then pass the finish line. But the other team could do anything they wanted to stop them doing so. And it was the first time I ever saw anyone do like the total elimination outside of wrestling. And then I just saw this guy like powerbomb another guy off the arena. It was like, fuck me, this is amazing. But I think it only lasted for like 1 season. And it's worth this if you go to YouTube to check out Roller Jam. It was pretty cool. And it was a shot like in a closed circuit, like a television studio. So the crowd was about 200 or 300 people. But these guys were really going at it, man. I saw like guys doing like clotheslines and jumping leg drops, and it looked good and brutal too. I think there is a potential for other sports to work, but what they are, I guess it's still a mystery.
It's true. I mean, the thing is though, you've got to be careful what you do work into it. I mean, look what Inoki did in New Japan.
Yeah,
he tried to bring in mixed martial arts into a wrestling show as well, and then he tried to get some of his wrestlers to do mixed martial arts who weren't properly trained, and guess how that ended for them?
It wasn't very well. Yeah, they got very...
Yeah, exactly, and that's not what you want when you've got you guys trying to work matches when they look like hamburger meat, and then the credibility is shot to hell. I mean, all you got to do is look at the brawl for all in the WWF, Dr. Death Steve Williams. It crushed his credibility, and it's bye. And then, well done. You've won this tournament. Congratulations. We're going to send you to WrestleMania. You're going to fight a Butterbean. You're going to cave your skull in less than 10 seconds. And that's the end of your career. Exactly.
But then it had like, who else came in as like a wrestler gimmick? Wasn't there someone else who had a gimmick going on at the time? Mark Merrow. He had a wrestler gimmick, a boxer gimmick, didn't he? Boxer
gimmick, yeah.
Yeah. I think he was a wrestler, but he had
because
a boxer.
He couldn't bring his Johnny B. Bad gimmick in. That's what the Vince wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted that gimmick, but he couldn't have it because it was WCW's.
Yeah. When you look at Johnny B. Bad, I guess in many ways it was like an over-the-top version of Jesse Ventura. You know, all a very lots of pageantry running around, looking like a very 90s, very 90s. If you haven't seen it, go check it.
And yet it didn't work. But let's do it again in about 2003 with Rico.
Yeah. Actually, Rico did extremely well, actually, for a while. He was the guy you couldn't take serious, but actually you did, because actually his wrestling matches were pretty sound.
Jim Cornette loved that guy. Yeah. He thought he was going to be a big name. The only thing that ever let him down was his age.
Yeah, it was mid-30s, wasn't he, when he got over?
It was, yeah.
And didn't he die
in OVW, he was the dude.
Did he die a few years ago?
He didn't die, but he was very, very ill.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to double check that. I think he did, but who knows? Man. So.
And that was a dark twist.
Yeah, dark twist. So that's an interesting point. So we're talking about Johnny B. Bad is flamboyant character, based on Jesse Ventura, I guess, and you had DDP kind of running that a little bit later. Well, then you look at a guy like in NXT now with Velveteen Dream. He kind of
Oh dear
reminds me.
God, one of my favorite guys in professional wrestling today.
I did
How
not think I would like that guy.
I did not. When I first saw him come out, he was just a guy dressed in velvet gear. What? Why do I care? And then he had that feud with
That's
Aleister
right.
Black,
Yeah,
just over his name, just over his name.
and over the course of like 3 weeks, and then after that, it was just like, this is the fucking man. He's good.
Yeah, out of nowhere, he evolved so fast, so great, so well, and he gets it. He doesn't just get the wrestling, and every match he'll modify his moveset to the opponent. It's incredible. I don't think I've seen too many guys even be able to pull anything like that off, and especially at his age. What is he like? 23?
Yeah, he's relatively young, isn't he? Yeah, I kind of like
He is very young.
that he's a little bit like Prince, tough guy at the same time, and you believe that is you're unsure whether that is real character. Because again, we talk about the idea that Steve Austin says that you are yourself at all times, but you are yourself ramped up by 10. I don't doubt that that's close to who he is in real life, but it's ramped up by 10.
But he gets it.
Yeah, I believe that he is that guy, and it works.
I mean, every time they put him on a takeover, they stick him in a match. You want your eyeballs to see that match, and I mean, it's been announced. I don't know. It hasn't been announced, but it's clear to me that it'll be EC3 versus Velveteen Dream at the next takeover.
Oh man,
and I want to see that.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not even announced. I want to see that. That's got to happen. I need that match in my life.
EC3 is the guy I like, actually. He's a guy, again, for some people, oh, he failed at NXT. Well, no, it just didn't work out for him. He went away, he worked on his stuff, got better, became a champion, made the style that he wrestles, he developed himself, and then went back. And then he's the guy who's going to potentially be the standard bearer of NXT's next evolution.
It's strange as well. It's almost as if the WWE want him to be a heel, but the fans just won't have it.
That's familiar.
They just won't have it. It's just like, he's EC3 and we want to cheer him. So I think that's also partially the reason why this has come around for Velveteen Dream and EC3.
Shows to have their own canon. What doesn't exist outside the universe doesn't exist, and it's purely here. The fact that he's still called EC3, he's still Ethan Carter III, although they don't say that. Does that mean that the Carter universe, the TNA that was, exists in the WWE universe?
Well, it did long enough for it to be old Dixie Carter being in a documentary about Kurt Angle not too long ago on the WWE network.
I think she's a MILF, man. She's hot. She might not have a good head in the business, but she's hot.
Don't say that's Jim Cornette.
But have you heard that she might have slept with Kevin Nash?
Mr. Cornette has made it clear that SWAT interactions may have occurred.
Yeah, I heard that Kevin Scott Hall was like, I can't tell you that he's my best friend. I was like, oh, gee, we know who you're talking about. But why wouldn't you? I mean, I guess.
I don't know. Maybe your wife at home. Traditionally, as soon as you start going, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's not a good idea. But, I guess if you're getting over... And I wonder if it's for Dixie at the time was a bit like, I'm surrounded by my favourite superstars and I'm watching great wrestling that I don't really need to focus on the business too much. I'm a fan. I'm here. I'm in the wrestling business.
It amazes me that Impact Wrestling is still in the air. It is the cockroach of professional wrestling. That damn company won't die. That thing will be still there when the WWE's gone, when New Japan's gone.
There's some things about Impact that I really want to happen. For a long time, I mean, me and you had a bit of a discussion about this many years ago, that the six-sided ring actually was their defining character, that it made them different. And if you turn it on, it looks different. And you were like, no, four-sided ring is wrestling, six-sided I can't take seriously. And I was still a bit like mulling it over in my head for so long, going, no, 6 sides different. 6 sides good. And then obviously Hogan came in with Bischoff, and they changed it to a 4-sided ring, and then it ran its course. It obviously ran until Hogan and Bischoff had gone, and then a few weeks later the 6-sided ring came back, and then that was the case then until Don Callis came in with Scott D'Amore and went, we've got to make this company work. And since then it's 4-sided, and 4-sided seems to be okay. The fans don't seem to mind. But is it the fans don't seem to mind is because the fans had no recollection there was anything different before. So I like the 4-sided ring. I think it tells a better story. And if you want to sell other marketing stuff such as video games, 6-sided ring doesn't work in video games at all.
A Mexican style promotion gimmick, but really, no. I think it's a case of tradition rules with a 4-sided ring.
Because a lot of the guys say that the ropes are tighter because there's less give coming off the ropes, and you have to adjust yourself because you got to deal with a wider angle in the corner when it comes to doing moonsaults and flips. And if you're standing on the top rope, it's really hard because you don't have the quarter underneath it. It's a much wider angle, so that's harder to deal with. But you get used to it. What you don't get used to is the fact that the ring has no give at all because it's the steel frame is inside as an actual star shape, as opposed to on a traditional wrestling where it's just one beam and the flat board across it. So you're taking bumps that should have some give and they just don't. And I guess if you need wrestlers to have a bit of a longer lifespan in the ring, a ring shine, it's not happening in a 6-sided ring.
No, and that's the last thing you want is no giving the ring. I mean, look what happened to the British Bulldog when WCW had that trapdoor in the mat.
Yeah.
That messed his back up and pretty much finished him from there. He wrestled some more matches, but it was never the same again.
No, it really wasn't, though. I mean, I don't know, I like the idea that they were willing to have a different look to their show. And I still think you should pull the ring out for certain matches of the year, because you can have gimmick matches, and if a gimmick match includes having a different ring, it works. So, like, the 6 sides of steel for Lockdown works. If you want to have the X Division for Destination X, where it's a 6-sided ring because it's more Lucha Libre based, that's fine, but it's right, you shouldn't have a 6-sided ring all times. 4-sided should be a standard, I think. Like you say, it's the
Do you know what?
rules.
They should have got away with having a 6-sided ring pay-per-view.
Yeah.
No one else is doing that.
No. No, not
I mean,
at all.
you can have a cage match on a 6-sided ring, and it's different from the 4-sided one.
Yeah.
Just because it's got 2 more sides.
Yeah, 6 sides of steel, and I think that has a much better ring to it than just going a Lockdown or just a cage match. It's 6 sides of steel. It's like, this sounds fucking like indomitable. It sounds dangerous.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't like the Lockdown pay-per-views because I'm not the biggest fan of cage matches. It's got to be a pretty special cage match for me to enjoy it. Otherwise, I just feel it's the same stuff done over and over.
Yeah.
A few moves, and they use the cage by throwing them. Someone gets stuck behind the ropes, dive into it, try it again. They move, they bounce into it.
Yeah.
A few more moves, and then they try for the door. And then someone tries to get out, and the one pulls him down. And then, more often than not, high spot wrestlers will do a dive off the top.
Sure.
Feast or famine.
Yeah.
And then it's a case of one will get away and escape.
Yeah. It is weird, like you say, that there's only so many matches you can tell in a cage match, but I thought TNA were quite inventive with some of their matches. Actually, they had a capture the flag match in the wrestling ring, and that was the most craziest match I ever saw. It was like it was LAX versus Team 3D with Spike, and they had a capture the flag match. They had a flag in each corner, and you basically had the bigger guys wrestle each other while Spike and I don't know, I think they had a chick on the Alex side. It's actually trying to get around the ring while trying to be hidden. And actually, as a gaming fan, watching a wrestling match, having a games rules match, that was the most craziest thing I think I ever saw at the time. And actually, it was the first capture the flag match in America where the heels actually won. And I loved it. It was great.
Maybe that's something else we can cover in the future. Wild gimmick matches.
Dude, there's been some wild-ass gimmick matches out there.
Oh, yeah. Stay away from Japan.
Yeah.
We already covered some of those scary things.
So I'm dead. In my list, I've got a list going off in my head already of gimmick matches that shouldn't have happened. And in my head, I'm going, remember that time when TNA had a reverse battle royal where they had to throw them into the ring? Just...
Oh, and the first Blood Battle Royal as well.
Yeah, where
I
Kevin
can't remember
Nash
which
actually got
company
cut for
that
real.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some pretty nasty stuff as well. The terrible women's matches at the WWF in the 2000s, the pudding matches and
Yeah,
gravy bowl matches.
So that's where we started with this show. We were talking about women's matches, okay, and we were talking about the women's evolution. So that is the biggest evolution in terms of WEF, whatever you want to call it. When WF was putting on women's matches post 2000, there were, like you said, there were Brian Panties matches, gravy bowl matches, pudding matches, and it was just like, what the fuck is this? Is it because they believed their audience were generally teenage males and they needed to appeal to the sex demographic of the horny male? Because if you're a woman watching at that time, you must have been utterly embarrassed. And I think as a wrestling fan, I was embarrassed for them having a match. What about you?
Now, I can believe everything you're saying, but you also need to remember at that time that was the rise of Trish Stratus and Lita. Now, if you remember, you take mine back, at that time period, if a woman could go, she tended to have a pretty decent match. Jazz, Molly Holly, Lita, Trish. If they could not go, Tori Wilson, Stacey Keibler, Terry Reynolds, gravy bowl matches. And it was their way of still keeping them in the women's mix and keeping, say, the champion at the time. Generally, it was Trish that ended up doing these matches, not Solar, but still. I mean, you never saw Molly Holly in a gravy bowl match.
No, not that I recall. She probably did on house shows or something. But that's what, did women wrestle on house shows? Did they actually have their own matches?
I'd assume so. Why else would you even book them?
Oh yeah, sex appeal, I guess. Wow.
But that's the thing. I mean, 2000 had that, the dirty matches, and then they had the women's matches that was great quality, and then to mid 2000s, Trish retired, Lita retired, and Jazz left, Molly retired, Victoria went to TNA, and then the quality in women's wrestlers dropped again with like Ashley Mazzaro and Joy Giovanna, you know, all the models that they brought in.
Yeah, there was this whole influx, wasn't there, for like almost like 2 years. There was just like, who are these people?
The Divas search, and it's just terrible.
Actually, that's when WF, so WWE, they became divas, not women wrestlers.
Yeah, that's right.
And I am almost feeling like quite, almost ashamed of going, if I've got a female in the house and I want her to like wrestling, when we get to the women's match, she'll hate me for it. And I can remember that happened a couple of times, and I'm watching like Raw, and and they got upset the fact that these women were having silly matches.
Yeah, the worst thing was it'd be a case of like, you had your serious women's wrestlers at that time period. Victoria before she left. You had the rise of Beth Phoenix. Yeah. You had Mickie James as possibly the last real member of like the early 2000 women's wrestlers. She was pretty much the last one standing of Molly Holly, of Trish, Lita. She wrestled all of those, but then she transitioned into the Melina, the Beth Phoenix, Candice Michelle at the time. But for every Joy Giovanna, occasionally you would have a Candice Michelle. I mean, she came in as another one of the ring totties that looked good and all the rest on it. But she worked her ass off at one point, and she had some fantastic matches with Beth Phoenix over the women's title.
Who else came in at that time?
Kelly.
Yeah. As Joe Lola would say, like, oh, she's so stupid they named her twice, so she wouldn't forget her name.
One of the if you want to talk about stupid things, Jim Cornette nailed one the other week, and it almost made me die a little inside with laughter. And it was, they're so stupid. If it was raining soup, they'd be outside with a fork. I actually thought that was hilarious. Thank you, Mr. Cornette.
Man, just that time, I think women's wrestling, that thanks like to the girls like the TNA Knockouts who made women's wrestling kind of feel legit again. And then for the 2011, the kind of women's revolution in WE, so the last say 3 years.
I don't. Divas Revolution. It wasn't really that great through until about 2013. You'd have like one really good women's wrestler, maybe another one, and then there was mixed in. And the occasional other one would work their ass off and get so far. But it was always, you know, by the time they made it up, they'd leave, like Michelle McCool.
But she ran the other
She was another one. She was another one. She raised herself up and then she left. And then Maurice, she came in as ring totter, worked her ass off, became the female champion a whole bunch of times. She injured her back and she left. Apparently she's doing quite well for herself nowadays, I hear. Something about a reality TV show. Don't know if you guys heard about that.
No, I know of it. So, do you think the women's title means anything? Like, say, how it used to? Like, being swapped around like hot potato to whoever rolled each other up in gravy and whoever had a good match. You kind of saw the belt on the show and went, I don't care. And you'd go off and get your tea or get your coffee or whatever. And you really wouldn't care less. So when
it did feel like that.
Yeah.
But and again, you'd be treated to Trish versus Lita main event Raw.
Yeah.
Or what? I mean, you've got the Divas Revolution, sorry, the Women's Revolution today. But what they don't want you to remember is the fact that on a quite innocuous Raw opener, I think it was one of the very first Raw roulettes, it was Lita versus Victoria in a cage match. A cage match for women in a cage match. And it was a damn good match. And it must have really pained them to say that in 2016 when they had another cage match. I think it was Alexa Bliss and maybe Mickie James. No, Mickie James interfered in it, so I think it was Becky Lynch. Bliss versus Lynch, and Mickie James made a return.
Yeah, I remember that.
But they had to hold that in the first ever women's. No, it's actually not.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I keep hearing. That's what kind of it bothers me as a wrestling fan, and I'm sure it bothers other people too. Is that they keep saying it's the first women's Royal Rumble, the first women's cage match, the first one. And it's like, well, how embarrassing is that the case? You've had women on your card for I don't know how long. They've only just got around to having a women's ladder match or a women's Money in the Bank match. You've been running Money in the Bank matches for 12 years. And there's not been a women's one before. And it kind of makes you realise, have they been holding them back, or did they just not trust them?
I think it's a case. I don't think it's a case of trust. I just don't think that they thought they would be able, like Jim Cornette's thoughts. You have to remember that WWE is still based on the old school mentality. Women's wrestlers can't take the bumps like the men.
Yeah.
And when you look at, I think it was the first ever women's Hell in a Cell, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. How many times has Charlotte tried to put Sasha Banks through that table?
Yeah.
There's about three attempts, all very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And yet couldn't do it.
They didn't quite have the...
Because Sasha's just not heavy enough.
No.
And that's no knock on her. Sasha Banks, fantastic female wrestler. In fact, no, fantastic wrestler.
Yeah.
But yet just couldn't have the weight to go through that damn table.
It's the one thing I kind of what's in my mind now is I used to buy WCW mag back in the day, local corner shop, buy WCW magazine, and I can remember in my head just popped in there now is that there was an article by Finlay once, and he was tasked with teaching the female wrestlers at that time in WCW, which was Tori Wilson, it was Stacy Keibler, how to wrestle because they were brought in as ring totty, but they actually wanted to go. They were on a wrestling show. They wanted to learn to wrestle, and he was charged with teaching them. And it was like I don't know who actually conducted the interview because it was like he said this and the interviewer said this, and it said, will women ever be in a position where they'll be in the main event of a Nitro or on a pay-per-view? And he's like, well, it's not that it won't happen, not that it shouldn't happen, is that unfortunately women don't put bums in seats.
Do you know what? I think that they may try and change that at this next year's WrestleMania.
Okay.
I do believe they will push for Charlotte Rousey
Main
for
event.
one of the women's belts at
Yeah.
the main event. And I think Charlotte is possibly the biggest female name in professional wrestling today.
Yeah.
And I think that Ronda Rousey is the biggest female special attraction in professional wrestling today.
Yeah, I like the fact that you made that distinction between a wrestler and a special attraction. I think she wants to wrestle, and clearly she has. Her ability speaks for itself, and her obviously fight career does. But she's still learning to wrestle, to put on a performance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that she's willing to take the risk and become a WWE superstar. But like I say, it's the attraction. She draws in a different demographic of fans. Like you saw at WrestleMania last year, there's like Dana White sat in the crowd because he's there to support, obviously Ronda, and then all the UFC fans are like, well, actually, as much as I love UFC, I love the fact these guys kick fuck out of each other and do it really well with a lot of grace and skill. They do not put on the spectacle of WrestleMania. WrestleMania is a different beast entirely.
Exactly. I mean, as much as they might try, and as much as they may get that special attraction match, it will never be this particular show every year that you're going to see something special, something that you don't see the rest of the year. And WWE has that.
Yeah, it does.
UFC will never have that on a regular spot every time. They can't.
No. I guess their model doesn't allow for that to happen. No. When you look at how UFC effectively has taken the WWE model of how to run weekly shows to a big pay-per-view, they effectively have taken what was the WWE format and made it legitimate fighting. And it's no wonder they took the audience and ran the ball with it. And their pay-per-views clearly sell that and show that. It's a smart businessman for that, definitely.
If it works, you do it. I mean, why wouldn't there? There's so many UFC guys. I mean, the biggest names in the UFC take their inspiration from professional wrestling.
But that
Conor McGregor, exactly.
Oh yeah, but Conor's character is different. Conor is a kick-ass guy who carries his own mantle. You can tell that Conor is a character as well as being a legitimate fighter. Everyone else just seems to be a fighter, and I think that was different about Ronda. Ronda was willing to also do the TV shows, willing to go around and talk a lot. She became a personality as well as being just a fighter, and I think that's actually what perhaps put her on the back foot against that Holly Holm fight where she got kicked in the face, and that's brutal. She became a celebrity as opposed to just being a fighter.
And I think this is the reason why the Evolution pay-per-view is coming around. I think that back in 2002, the emergence of Brock Lesnar, who came in as this kick-ass monster, in just 6 months became WWE champion. And it was a case of, I remember reading an article, it's like, what is Vince McMahon going to do now to keep the interest of that monster?
Yeah.
16 months later after that, the guy walks out of the company.
Yeah, that's right.
And they've got to make sure that they do not do that again with Ronda Rousey. And that's why I think it was brilliant that they didn't put the belt on her in this last pay-per-view. You've got to remember as well, they've got to try and keep making the other women strong. They've done a fantastic job of taking Alexa Bliss, who at best was average. And I really never thought for 1 second Alexa Bliss would make it on the main roster.
No, you're right. I thought
that she was too small, but she's a damn pretty girl. But she's picked her game up, and goddamn, give her that microphone.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
She can pull off that bitch character so well. For someone that was afraid to even do it when she first given the opportunity,
yeah,
she's taken to it like a duck to water.
Because that is what, to become an overall complete WWE wrestler. I mean, it's like what's painted on the wall at the Performance Center. You're no longer a wrestler. You're a WWE superstar. And for some people, they find that they hate that. I don't want to be a WWE guy. I want to be I'm a wrestler. And I think wrestling fans don't like that. But actually, a WWE superstar means something different. It means you become your character. You become a celebrity. You become important. And you become a brand of yourself. You become a brand extension of the WWE, and you carry a mantle for that. And Alexa does that. I mean, I've seen figures of her. I've seen people. She obviously turns up to pay-per-views dressed as like Harley Quinn and stuff. She carries, and girls flock to her character because she's important. She inspires people because she potentially is just them. They identify with her.
She's the Daniel, like it or not, she's the Daniel Bryan of the female division.
Yeah.
She's a small wrestler that had an average growing up. She had her own problems when she was growing up with anorexia, almost died, came through it, and just like any woman, any little girl that wanted to, could one day become a wrestler, and a damn successful one.
Yeah.
And she is now what, a 5-time women's champion?
Yeah.
In what?
2 years. 2 years. 2 years.
I mean that's up there with Charlotte.
Yeah. So when you look at, say, the other female wrestlers on the roster now, let's talk of like, they did the Women's Royal Rumble where they had 30 women on the roster coming. Obviously, a lot of them were just, they just came in to fill out the numbers, as it were. But is there enough actually to run a women's only show, do you think?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. And it's the same reason why they did a fantastic job with the Royal Rumble, because we all knew that there was not enough women's wrestlers on Raw and SmackDown for that Royal Rumble. We absolutely knew that they was definitely going to bring up some people from NXT, and they had to bring back legends.
Yeah,
they had to, because if nothing else, they wanted their moment in the sun to say, "We built this. We put the foundation under your feet for you to build this castle."
Yeah.
And there wasn't any woman that went into that match and did not perform.
No.
My heart went out for poor old Alicia Fox, actually. She got injured on the practice of the Royal Rumble that day.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That is terrible. And then again, Paige as well. She got injured right before the Royal Rumble.
So you kind of wonder who wouldn't have been in the Rumble had they been in it.
I would say probably Vicky Guerrero.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, I thought her spot actually was quite good, actually.
I think the possibility of one of the other NXT girls possibly not making it in.
Yeah.
Because there's no way they wouldn't have put Trish or Lita or Marley.
You know what? Lita's moonsault. It actually just like, that was fucking close.
Yes. Almost. It was a bit scary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was just like, damn.
Oh. There's a reason why the women don't still do that.
No. Because her moonsault is like she literally lays back as she does it. Her neck just folds in, and then her body goes flat straight after. Oh, damn. That's tight, man. That's not a move you want to be pulling off very often. That's like right there with the Hayabusa. You just don't do that.
Well, she doesn't do it that often. But then again, Lita and Trish have both been confirmed for Evolution.
Oh, good.
So I'm not quite sure who else they could bring in. I mean, in fact, actually, just thinking about it, Mickie James sent a tweet to Trish and said, perhaps maybe one more time. Not too long ago, someone actually did do the Windows peak.
Really?
Well. And I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. I can't remember who it was now as well, which is just killer.
Do you not think that was actually really good? Is that she technically had the best finisher on the card of anyone?
Yes.
Male or female, that Widow's Peak just looked tasty.
Yeah, that was some tasty stuff.
Yeah, because it looked like it legitimately hurt. But
yeah, that's probably why she was so good though, because it looked like it hurt, and
yeah, it was
no one was carried away. So
no, looked good, and the way they sometimes would land on the knees and just fall forward, like, my God, she just broke her. Yeah. But it's interesting. I actually thought her character was better in TNA when she became Tara. She took on, when she first came to TNA, she had because her character changed a couple of times in TNA. She was Tara, and she had a spider. You know, she was doing the tarantula against the ropes, like Tajiri style, and her style was very much based around a spider. She would move in the ring and be different. And then when she defeated her opponent, a bit like Jake the Snake, she actually would put instead of a snake, she'd put the spider on there as tarantula. And I was like, I like that. That actually is not Victoria. That's a different character entirely, different moveset, but still had the Widow's Peak. And obviously she has her own. I follow her on Twitter, and she has her own restaurant and a bar, and has her own fitness gym, and like what are they like? It's like a clothing brand. So I guess she's done obviously very well for herself outside of wrestling as well.
She's a busy girl.
Yeah.
But also as well, you also have to take into consideration this Evolution coming up. In the meantime, between now and Evolution is another Mae Young Classic.
that's right. So there's that
And
potential of those
Caitlin's
girls.
been confirmed.
Yeah.
Former Divas champion. She's confirmed for that tournament. I think Serena's back for it as well.
Riko Satomura is on that card as well.
Yes.
Because that's an interesting point as well. When you think about the Joshipuro of Japan, you know, there was this documentary that was on the wrestling channel when it was on Sky back in the day, and it was called The Women of Gaia, which is a guy who's been a Japanese female wrestling promotion, Joshipuro, and it's very hard to think of, say, how wrestling in the American and the UK wrestling camps training are, as it is in Japan. In Japan, literally, you live at the venue, and you live the lifestyle, effectively, where you're learning from the guys and the girls who are teaching you. But you're sweeping the ring, you're making the mats, and you kind of live the lifestyle. You live in a big house together. It's almost like a fraternity. And then you rarely get the call up. You've got to work extra hard to be extra noticed. So everyone works at the highest level of ability. And Riko Satomura, of course, is the head teacher of this camp. And she's saying to this girl who had failed the year before, and she'd come back to try and prove herself, very Japanese style as they do. And she wanted to be driven harder. And Riko was like, "You have no idea. I gave up having children to become a professional wrestler. You know, and you left. You know, you shamed me. I worked really hard. I put on all these great matches, and I want you girls to take my role and take over my position and be strong. And you failed, so I'm going to be firm with you more than last year." And again, this girl actually, in the course of this documentary, actually, she dropped out again, and she just cried and she left. And you could see how much it actually affected Riko Satomura from that point. And actually, Gaia as a federation in Japan, I don't know what happened to them after that, because I never saw any more of their material. Really powerful.
No idea.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Paige, when she auditioned for the WWE, when she went for a tryout, she failed her first time around.
Did she?
She did, because she made the mistake of thinking that she needed to change all of her character up. So she went there blonde-haired and all dolled up like one of the other divas.
I didn't know
and
that.
they just went, yeah, she even said this herself. She went there all dolled up as a blonde and all the rest on it, and they just passed her because she just looked like the rest. So the second time she went for a tryout, she went as the Paige that we all know today.
Yeah.
And they just went,
Yeah,
wow, she's different.
Yeah.
And she can wrestle. Snap her up, get one of them contracts.
Yeah, because she was on Edge and Christian's podcast about 3 weeks ago, and she was talking about how she's actually part of a gypsy family. So literally they would tour across the UK. So they literally go from town to town to town, putting on wrestling shows. The Knight family, because obviously she's Brittany Knight as her real name. And when she was like 13, she got in the ring against her dad's wishes, and the fans thought it was actually part of the show, and it wasn't. It was just her and a friend just batting around, and then from that point, she said she never looked back and stayed in the ring.
Yeah, she even said that her first wrestling match was before she was born. Her
Yeah,
mother
her
didn't
mum.
know she was pregnant.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, the Knight family, really powerful British wrestling family, and so there was the wrestling film about her life, that was pseudo documentary style, and then now of course The Rock has helped produce the film, which is of that movie, is the story of that documentary, but told as a movie itself, and I think that's perhaps the reason why WWE offered her the job to stay in, because I think they were fully willing to let her go, but then The Rock's film obviously it was paid out separately by him to go ahead. So
It's good that it all worked out for her because she went through those troubling times.
yeah, absolutely. So do you think a women's show will happen then?
What, the Evolution
No,
show?
no. So like, so you have Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT, an actual separate women's show.
I kind of hope not, because it's great that the cruiserweights have got their own show. I mean, for a while it was pretty hard to watch, but
Yeah.
since Triple H took over, it is. I can't wait to watch that show every week. 205 Live. If you're not watching it, why are you
You're
a
missing
wrestling fan?
Yeah, you're missing out. Some good shows on there. Mustafa
Yeah,
Ali is just
but
and Drake
Mustafa
Maverick.
Ali.
Drake Maverick. What a name.
And do you know what? That guy's come on leaps and bounds as well.
Yeah.
Because as Rockstar Spud, my eyes were sick. And now he comes on and he just talks his business, and he just talks business as well.
Yeah.
And everything he says makes sense. Why would he put this guy in this match? Well, I put this guy in this match because he's doing the best stuff right now. Because he's doing the best matches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
I think actually,
And then
he's going to be loving it, on 205 Live, where he gets to still work with everyone he kind of worked with in TNA. Obviously Bruce Pritchard, obviously and Jerry Borash, and obviously they kind of free reign over 205 Live a bit with Tripp going, what's going on over here?
yeah, and honest to God, what happened with Buddy Murphy?
Dude, what happened to that guy? That's how guys should get over.
It's like he went away somewhere. He got hurt. Apparently, he went away, then wrote down, "I'm going to be the greatest cruiserweight ever in the history of professional wrestling," and he made sure that he was damn well going to be at least up in that top conversation.
Why not? I think guys like Kenny Omega kind of, let's change the world. Let's make it happen, and he's made it happen.
Yeah, getting back to one of the subjects we covered before, when it comes down to where wrestling is. In the last 3 years, the match quality in professional wrestling has never been better.
No, it really hasn't. Do you think it's because they could get away with having average matches? The quality of matches.
Oh, of course, the quality of matches in the last 3 years is there's never been a better time. The standard of wrestling in the WWE is unbelievable. And it just amazes me when you've got guys like Nakamura and Styles and that you can keep some of the most awful wrestlers that WWE still insists on keeping R-Truth. I mean, I don't care that the guy's been there all these years. It's amazing that he has. I'm not the biggest R-Truth fan.
No.
I mean, I wasn't really a big Ron Truth Killings fan when he was world champion in TNA.
He looks like he has a good moveset, but I think he hasn't evolved his character. I think he's always stayed the same. He hasn't done anything new.
Do you know, one of the most hilarious things I heard once was someone says, I think Ron the Truth Killings and Booker T are the same person.
Really?
Until the last few years, they've never worked in the same place, and they have a very similar moveset.
Yeah, maybe they can be inspired by each other. But no, it's when you look at them side by side, you kind of wonder, that I guess there's something about each other within them. I don't think like R-Truth has he what has he done in WWE? Because I guess he's always been around. What's he done in WWE?
US title very briefly. I think there was tag titles at some point. He's occasionally had belts, but that's about it. And then he went through his heel phase in about 2011 and challenged Cena for the WWE title at Capital Punishment in a no one takes this match seriously match.
Okay. Wasn't that Capital Punishment considered one of their worst pay-per-views?
It was pretty bad, but as WWE tends to do, once you see all this awfulness, they have this one match that makes you go, oh, we still need to keep that at DVD. And that was Christian versus Randy Orton for the world title.
Yeah, that was it.
And I'm not quite sure which one it was. It's irrelevant. If you see those two names next to each other and you see the world title over it, you go, yeah, that needs watching.
That needs watching.
Because they did not have a bad match, especially that time period. In fact, if you remember rightly, Randy Orton said he'd just not long come back from an injury, ended up working with Christian. It was Christian that gave him his mojo back.
Yeah, I think listening to how Christian talks about his wrestling history and what he's done with guys, when I listen to Christian on his podcast, I realize actually he's not just a wrestler. He's actually a real student of the game. He really wants to put people over. He gives honest feedback, and he's really into the match structure and how it works and what should and shouldn't work in a match. And he's really kind of really keen on making sure the little bits work. And I guess I never saw that as a wrestling fan. But looking back at it, I go, actually, I can see that exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. But Randy Orton, just
Beast.
Just a tremendous wrestler. And coupled with Christian, thank God for that match, because that was a god-awful pay-per-view. Oh, and also, it was getting back to the Truth thing. Truth also had that match when he was teamed with The Miz, where there was against The Rock and Cena at some Survivor Series.
Didn't like Ron Truth? Didn't he like tag with Goldust for a while?
Yes, it was one of those where they didn't want to be partners, and then they did, and then no one cared.
All right.
None of you people out there cared. I didn't care. Chris didn't care. No one cared. Not even my
So,
dog.
on a completely unrelated note, but I've heard like Goldust, Dustin Rhodes has actually gone from WWE now. Is that right?
I don't think so.
I'm sure. You know when you look at like Wrestle Talk headlines occasionally, and you go, "Oh, I didn't know that." I think he's.
It's possible. I mean, I've been a little bit busy the last few weeks, so it's difficult to say.
Because I was thinking, if that's actually the case, would he turn up at All In with Cody?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Even if he just ends up being a bodyguard or something.
Or he comes in to disrupt the match, and then he has a feud with Cody.
Yeah, the feud that they never actually had.
Yeah.
Oh no, just checked, and Goldust is actually on the shelf at the minute with double knee surgery.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna be good.
But he's actually being honoured by the Williamson County Sheriff Department.
All right,
as an honorary deputy.
So
there we go. Learn something new tonight as well. That's it. It's probably part of the gimmick.
Yeah, man. So I guess we started this conversation on women's wrestling, the women's wrestling revolution, and have gone down every kind of rabbit hole that could possibly lead to, and we end up on Goldust.
Exactly.
Who'd have thought?
So we're leaving it there. We're going to go a bit further into the women's.
You know what? I guess let's just stay on Goldust for a second. What's coming to mind? So Goldust, when did he kind of come out with his character? 96?
95, 96. It would have been around about.
So
maybe a bit early. No, it was about 96.
Once again,
95 definitely latest. Earliest.
I'm going to be quoted from the Edge and Christian podcast, where Goldust was a guest on there about a few months ago, and he was saying that he really enjoyed the character of Goldust when it came out because he was hated. Because before that, he was just a guy having wrestling matches, and he never had any real heat. But no one had ever seen anyone like Goldust before, and had no idea how he was supposed to be, so he kind of ran with it. And I think I remember that happening, going, "Fucking, is he gay or something? Does that work in wrestling? Does anyone care?"
He's androgynous, damn it!
He's androgynous, that's right. And it was just like he was hated because no one knew how to accept it from a fan base point of view.
It was still the 90s, and even I was quite shocked. It's like, wow, this is a bit uncomfortable for me.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
mid 90s, it was still gay men and women was still out there, but it wasn't accepted like it is today.
No,
not at all.
No. So to see that gimmick in the wrestling ring, the whole Shattered Dreams thing, kicking the guy in the nuts as kind of a finishing move, signature thing, that had never been seen before. Or never been done before like that, and that it made me wanting to see what happened next. I think it's a great
exactly.
Matches.
I mean, when he kissed Ahmed Johnson when he was taped to that stretcher, and Ahmed Johnson told him, "Do not kiss me on the mouth. Do not kiss me on the mouth." It was like, "I won't do it. I won't do it," and he did. That guy must have been absolutely insanely just out of his mind with rage. Yeah. And the way Goldust against Scott Hall, I always remember he managed to get him in a rear waist lock, and then he just ran his hands up and down his chest, and Hall was like watching his hands and just like, "Get off." Yes. He did all these things to get into Hall's mind, and he won the match with it, and it worked.
Yeah, good character at the time, man. He looks better now than he did then, and he was like 20 years ago.
When he teamed with Cody as well back a few years ago, and it was against the Usos. Dear God, how it's like he turned the clock back.
Yeah, he discovered DDP yoga, and that's what he did.
And he was doing things that he didn't even do 20 years ago.
That's crazy, isn't it?
The cannonball off the apron and that. It's like, where did that come from?
I suppose it's good to be inventive. So he's only like 2 years older than Cody, actually, from what I read. He's not that much older at all.
I'm not too sure about that.
Could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe I think about Eddie and.
That's right.
Yeah,
Eddie and Chavo was
2 years apart. Yeah,
2 or 3 years between them
getting my wires
to
crossed.
say they were nephew and uncle, but
Yeah.
no, Cody and Goldust, there's a bigger gap there. At least a decade, I'm sure.
So with WE Starcade happening, like last November, that never got shared or aired in any kind of way as a house show, and WWE have now registered the WWE Starcade pay-per-view name for December this year. Do you think that actually will become an annual NXT pay-per-view?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because I never really thought that the WWE would run with the whole War Games thing, and they've announced that they will run another one this year.
Yeah. So when I saw they're going to run Starcade, and I was like, they're probably not going to make that one of the main shows, but actually as an NXT Super Show, that makes sense because I guess Dustin rather as a character started NXT, and that seems to be the running theme.
Yeah, I mean, with the Dusty Tag Team Classic as well.
Yeah.
So, but then again, Dusty Rhodes has been such a thick part of the whole NXT process.
Yeah, so I think if they are going to run with that, I think that would be the sensible option to have it as an NXT Super Show.
Yeah. But I think they just pulled off the whole Starcade thing to pull in people just because they named a house show Starcade, and then just made it a little bit more NWA feeling.
Yeah. It was actually at the original venue of Starcade, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which was a show that WF had never ran there, hasn't it? WWE never ran a show in that town, hasn't it?
And speaking of shows that have never been ran before, what do you think of this whole news of Madison Square Gardens?
Oh man. So yeah, Madison Square Garden, Ring of Honor, New Japan Super Show G1.
Running WrestleMania weekend.
Dude, that also means it's a big NXT.
Two for that is.
Yeah. So, in terms of what I buy, I will tend to obviously I have WWE Network, right? I will tend to buy a number of ROH pay-per-views because I want to show my support to them. I really love what ROH do. So I tend to always buy Final Battle. I have done for the last 4 years. I tend to buy their Supercard of Honor 2, which is also the one for WrestleMania weekend. So that this year is the Supercard G1. So I'm going, what are they actually going to pull out? Is that technically going to be All In 2? Because when Jim Cornette was talking about the fact that Madison Square Garden had cancelled on Ring of Honor, and Sinclair then got involved, he said effectively that would have been All In 2, and I kind of wondered, is that when Sinclair then got involved and said, no, we're going to get involved, and then Madison Square Garden went, we're not going to go to the corporation like Sinclair. You can hire the building again, but to effectively have a Ring of Honor New Japan Supercard show, WrestleMania weekend, just down the road from WrestleMania, it's huge. It's Madison Square Garden. It's the most famous arena in the world. I mean, we saw like a few weeks ago they were in the Cow Palace, which is like the west side Madison Square Garden.
See, this is what I mean. I mean, even WCW couldn't get Madison Square Gardens when they were crushing the WWF.
No, I really couldn't.
That's amazing. No other wrestling promotions ran Madison Square Garden since what? 60s.
Yeah, I think it's even earlier. I really do.
It's something ridiculous. I
think in terms of a benchmark to run a show there, to even have the balls to ring them up and go, can I book a show there and not be told, fuck off. Whoever rang them to say, and they went, yeah, sure you can. It's not like WF run our arena anymore. They're down the street of the Barclays Centre. So
exactly, that's just insane. They even pulled that off. Even to ask, it must have been almost like, come on, you ask him. No, you ask him. You ask him. All right, now I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, how'd it go? They actually said yes.
Don't work. So don't tweet it yet. Just make sure you crossed all the lines, not the T's. I think actually everyone who knew that at the time must have been absolutely ecstatic, going, "Oh my god, we've got MSG."
And this leads to one of the questions. I want to cover this another time.
Okay.
how close are New Japan to becoming number 2 in the world?
Ooh. Definitely one for another show. Definitely.
I mean, WWE have been running shows in Japan, and they're getting bigger every year. And now New Japan are over in the US, and they're stepping on WWE's toes.
Okay. All right. So definitely conversation to be had another time. But let's stick on this one right now then. So, what do you think of main event, Ring of Honor and New Japan Super Show?
Oh my God, it's so difficult to say. I mean,
This G1 right now, every single night, pay-per-view quality matches, deck to deck, for a month. That's insane.
and the hilarious thing is, Kenny Omega in his block is untouchable. No one's beat him. He's on 8 points.
Yeah.
On the other block, there's Evil and Tanahashi, both on 8 points, but both of them have got a defeat, as well as earning their 8 points. Kenny Omega does not have a defeat yet.
No, so I don't know.
So how are they even going to pull this out? Because at this rate, because the winner of this faces the champion,
yeah,
at Wrestle Kingdom next year. So what happens if it's Kenny Omega that takes it? I don't think that's going to happen, but it could.
So do you think the winner of the other block effectively would be? I think it's going to be Naito, isn't it?
The thing is difficult because if, let's say, Kenny Omega actually takes his side of the block, and then on the other side, whoever it is takes their side of the block, you've actually already got your Wrestle Kingdom main event actually happening.
Yeah, I guess you would.
And that's kind of counterproductive, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe are they going to throw in a guest wrestler to be that spot? Like, even in this, who else would they even be?
But then again, I suppose they could always pull the whole, if Omega loses the belt, at least he's still got his shot.
That's a good point.
It's almost, money in the bank in it.
Yeah, because if Kenny loses his title before Wrestle Kingdom, he then has got his title shot at Wrestle Kingdom to win it back. But again, that almost seems... Why would you do that? I think why would you take it from him to make him win it back so quick?
But then again, on the other side of it, I mean, Omega's contract comes up around about that time as well.
It does, apparently.
Omega's always felt that, it'd be nice to take that one swing with the WWE. And he's not a spring chicken anymore.
No, he's like mid-30s now, 34, 35. He's good. He kind of feels like we do. Yeah, dude, I think...
God, I hope you don't feel like I do.
So again, we're going to main event then. Madison Square Garden, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Super Show. Is it going to be Okada and Kenny again? Or will it be like Naito and Kenny?
It's getting difficult because there's so many big shows. I mean, with Wrestle Kingdom just a couple of months beforehand. I mean, the G1 final is always a big show.
It is, yeah.
And then you're talking about this show, which would only be a couple of 3 months after Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, because Wrestle Kingdom is
really
second week of January.
How that pan out.
It's so good, so much good stuff going on. And as a fan, I go to work, and there's 2 guys I said at work, right? But it's like, dude, you got to watch New Japan. They're like, oh yeah, this Japanese guys. I've watched the Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar match. That wasn't fucking New Japan. What are you on about? Watch it now. Watch Okada. Watch Naito. Watch Evil. Watch Sonata. And I say Sonata. I'm not quite convinced by that guy yet. I think he has it. I think Evil has something, but not quite yet. But who else do I really like on there? Goto. Goto has something. Just that whole samurai spirit about the guy that makes you want to watch his matches. He kind of reminds me of watching Mitsurugi of Soul Calibur, but that kind of like stoic face, like the guy who's fighting for his honor, and you legitimately believe that's who he is.
And take out his soul to
Man. Or do you think they'll throw an American kind of big name perhaps XWE or Ring of Honor talent against a New Japan guy in their main event for Madison Square
I
Garden?
don't know. It's difficult to say. I mean, right now, the biggest US star, Western star in the world right now, with the exception of Omega, is Jericho. But you've already got him wearing the Intercontinental title.
Or Cody.
Cody's up there.
Yeah, he's. You actually think that's could it be like, I don't know, Cody and I know they've got to build him up. I mean, he's right there now, but he's lacking a main event feud in New Japan, isn't he?
Yeah,
So,
but with New Japan, if they want someone to be eligible and look strong, I mean, look what they did with Zack Sabre Jr. with the
Love
New
that guy.
Japan Cup.
absolutely love that guy. His matches are just like, I just love the fact they just picks guys apart with those limbs. Just guys just shouldn't move like that. But they do. Love it.
But that's the thing, that guy, I mean, in one tournament, he went from like some, junior weight to a legitimate threat.
Yeah.
One
Oh,
tournament.
that match against Okada. Oh my god, that was so good. Maybe even Zack Sabre versus Kenny Omega.
I would like to see that match.
Yeah,
Or maybe Kota Ibushi.
dude, Kota versus Kenny. Yeah, which has happened, but I don't know. It's grander stage. The they'll pull some crazy shit off.
Exactly. And you think about the stage, you think about what's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
The Golden Lovers reuniting and that.
Yeah. Well, then you got these other things. You got like Jericho's wrestling cruise going on as well.
Exactly. I mean, All In, Jericho's cruise.
If you're a
I mean,
wrestling
just
fan, you must be loving life right now. And like you said earlier, there's never been a time in wrestling where there's been this many high quality matches in a dense period of time. Literally, this is wrestling's boom time in terms of quality.
With quality, it's untouched. There's never been better time. Not anywhere, not ever.
No, not at all. Which is great, actually. Makes me glad to be a wrestling fan.
It does, but my hard drive hates it because it's so full.
I don't have the time to watch enough wrestling, and I have so much going on. I'm just like, so I kind of feel I have to pick and choose my matches and pick and choose my events, So I tend to catch up on like being the Elite, and I'll watch Ring of Honor on Fight TV on my way to work, and I'll catch Raw and SmackDown highlights. So I'll duck in on Impact to see what's happening over there. I still haven't seen Slammiversary yet, but I find myself I'll always watch Lucha Underground, and I'll always watch New Japan's shows. Although saying that, I've only seen maybe 3 nights out of the G1, which is awful because every time I watch it, it's like it really you want to watch. I might skip the tag matches. I'll just watch this one match, and before you know it, 4 hours has gone, and you're going, tomorrow night starts all again.
Well, I would love to continue this, but
Dude.
time's gotten on this occasion.
Dude, I can.
So I'm going to have to.
Yeah, it's
Sorry?
that time of night.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock, man. I know you've got work in 2 hours' time.
It's not far off.
No, dude. So
Not far off, and I've got a long day tomorrow.
All right, dude, that's been awesome, man. So this has been an unnamed wrestling show. This is a podcast where Christian and Kevin talk shit, talk wrestling. We glad that you were along for the ride, and we'll see you all next time. Let us know what you think of the fact this is a genuine conversation about wrestling from wrestling fans. We want you to get involved. Let us know. Drop a message below. Give us an email. I'll post the stuff up post editing, and we'll be in touch with you soon.